Good afternoon. It's Sunday, November 3rd. There's an enormous amount of weather going on across the world. As usual, you're listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. Listening to Weather with Enthusiasm.
Just collective. Weather with Enthusiasm is his podcast.
Taking a quick look at the Chicago area forecast for this week, and then we're going to take a look at Australia, then the Denver, Colorado, Cheyenne, Wyoming area, and then go into Alaska, and then back into the Denver, Colorado area. Quick look at the Chicago area for this week, because we have a very heavy rainmaker underway. Forecast rainfall accumulations of over 4 inches for parts of Illinois. Less than an inch is what's being forecasted right now for northwest Indiana, but 2 to 3 inches for the northwest third of the county warning area of the National Weather Service here in the Chicago area. What we have right now are 2 warm fronts, which are going to be moving through. One of them is basically dissipating, but it's moving up in north of the area. Then another one comes in tomorrow afternoon. The first area of precipitation, much of it actually evaporated before it touched the ground. That's because it fell into a dry air mass. But that's going to change as we go in through the night. The National Weather Service tells us that precipitation in the form of showers could form later on tonight, but a heavier precipitation area forms later tomorrow afternoon. We go through a dry area tomorrow morning into the early parts of the afternoon. The heavier precipitation comes in tomorrow afternoon. This is actually an air mass which has a record amount of moisture for this time of the year, a record high PWAT, says the National Weather Service. And we go into tomorrow night, possible thunder, maybe even severe weather. Much of that severe weather right now remains over in the Oklahoma area, that region. This is a developing storm system here in the Midwest, which is going to be pushing through the Midwest and be bringing heavy rain to our area. Also unseasonably mild air, but more importantly, unseasonably humid air as dew points go into the 60s. We're going to start to feel those higher dew points later on tonight, more so early tomorrow morning, but especially tomorrow night. The National Weather Service has expressed that clearly in their forecast. They say unseasonably humid. Those are terms that are not really, you don't hear that too much. The term unseasonably warm is more common. In this case, we also have the term unseasonably humid, but you can see dew points even approaching 70 degrees, even not just approaching, dew points in the low 70s for portions of Arkansas as we have that higher dew point air pushed into the Midwest. Dew points in the 60s here in the Chicago area later on tonight, but especially tomorrow night. The end of that rain comes on Tuesday. Then we go through a dry period with winds out in some area from the north, northwest, or northeast winds the period Wednesday through Friday. Now, the next system starts to approach the area, which will bring our south winds. But, here in Chicago, the south flow of systems, the backside of high pressure, it starts off with the east wind, then the southeast wind. So the winds have a lake component to them until they become southwest. So we do have warmer temperatures probably coming in on Saturday before the next system approaches, which would bring southwest winds, says AccuWeather, for Sunday. The southwest winds bringing warmer temperatures by Sunday. But here's the thing. The storm system coming for this weekend is actually the system which will be affecting Colorado and Wyoming area for later this week. It's a closed low, very slow moving system, and the computer models do not handle it so well, says the National Weather Service. And a lot of times these things show up later than what is currently being advertised on the computer models. The National Weather Service has our next chance for precipitation Friday night, but they tell us that the system might be delayed, which would cause the precipitation chances not to occur until Saturday night or perhaps even Sunday. So that's what's in our forecast right now. Winds are no longer off the lake by the time we approach that system, which would be happening on Sunday. And that's when, the lake, even now, it's not really that cold, but even so, you could get cooler conditions along the lake. But, it's when the winds are from the southwest, that's when we get the solid, mild air here in Chicago. So very heavy rain, very heavy rainfall totals here in Chicago. And the fact that we have drought conditions, even more so on the East Coast, but even here, means the rivers should be handling it pretty well, says the National Weather Service, at least well enough for them to hold off on issuing a flood watch at this point, but they might do so later. Wednesday through Friday, high confidence in dry for here in Chicago. That's due to high pressure air mass. We now will speak about the heat in Australia. But thank you for listening to this segment, and then we're going to come back to the United States. Extreme heat warnings have gone posted by the Australian National Weather Service for portions of Australia for much of this week. The National Weather Service in Australia for Boulder has issued an extreme heat warning. Now, currently that's in effect until tomorrow, 8 o'clock p.m. But the heat only intensifies after tomorrow as temperatures go up. In the Fahrenheit system, we're looking at temperatures going up to 112 degrees, says the European computer model Wednesday afternoon. It's not just the European computer model. Just about every computer model is forecasting highs in the low 100 and teens. Actually, every single one, which is advertised on windy.com. AccuWeather also forecasting a high of 112. The National Weather Service from Australia is forecasting their model forecasts high of 111 degrees for Boulder. To put that into the Celsius system, highs of 44 degrees Celsius is what's expected for Wednesday afternoon, possibly 45 degrees Celsius. But we have another part of Australia that also has extremely hot temperatures right now, and temperatures over there are just going to get even hotter. The northwestern portions of Australia, Fitzroy Crossing, Australia, we have temperatures in the mid 100s this week, but going up into the upper 100s by this weekend. That would be looking at temperatures of about 42 degrees Celsius by the time you get to this weekend, and other areas around there also looking at excessive heat. Here in the United States, we have a major winter weather pattern developing for Cheyenne, Wyoming, and areas like that. We would only have to put in the word major because it is November, but the National Weather Service is describing it as just a winter weather pattern for this week, as several snow systems are expected to produce accumulating snow across that area throughout the entire week. They're on the northern edge of the storm track, so each system is a snow-producing system. It is early in the season, but despite that, we do have the temperatures cold enough for the precipitation to be falling as snow. The Denver, Colorado National Weather Service of Boulder, Colorado tells us that they have high confidence in the forecast through Tuesday, but it's a winter weather pattern for them as well. The whole question is what's going to be happening after Tuesday, and there's a lot to talk about, tells us the National Weather Service of Boulder, Colorado. In fact, this forecast discussion is written so beautifully. We're going to read it right now. Right here, nothing could say it better than this. So this is being written by, the long term is written by Heavener, Heavener. Let's go. It's full of emotion. Those people that want to hear emotion, human emotion, this day and age, a love for weather, this is the place to go. The Denver, Colorado National Weather Service. It's actually, you could also call it the Boulder, Colorado National Weather Service. We take it away. Issued 3:01 a.m. this morning, Mountain Standard Time, Sunday, November 3rd. Again, issued by Heavener. I'm no music historian, says Heavener, but I do love to listen to music, so I'm pretty sure that when Bonnie Raitt wrote something to talk about, she was referring to the medium-range models for this upcoming work week, because yes, this upcoming week of weather has it all. Uncertainty, snow/rain, wind, colder temperatures, and uncertainty. Before we dive into the Wednesday through Saturday fun, Tuesday looks to be the only uncomplicated day with some high country snow showers, mainly North Park during the afternoon as we start to see the leading edge influence of what will become the closed low to our south. Outside of North Park, we expect very little in the way of sensible weather impacts with seasonal afternoon highs and increasing cloud cover. There's a ton at play for the Wednesday to next Saturday time period, so we'll try to synthesize it all over the next couple of paragraphs. We'll look at the uncertainties and overall synoptic setups. Synoptically, ensembles have been locked in on a four corners esquitroph of low pressure that closes off as it meanders somewhere to our south. A strong signal for this can be seen in numerous cluster analysis means, with all the anomalies favoring a stronger and deeper closed low throughout the late week. This will be the trend we need to watch the most: depth and movement. East coast and southeast ridging appear favorable to keep the closed low spinning away for several days in our proximity. Ridging becomes more amplified late next week, with the axis nosing into the high plains and portions of the intermountain west, so the mid-level low will have a tough time moving east much and would be forced to move north-northeast. If this happens, we'd be in for a long duration period of unsettled weather. Uncertainties. I mean, the trough/closed low could end up too far south initially and not recover in time, and we get left with sparse shower stuff late week. Temperatures aloft could play havoc with any snowfall as well, especially late week. Where we start off very cold aloft for the initial Wednesday period, -9 to -10 degrees Celsius at the 700 MB level. We could warm back towards 0 degrees Celsius by Friday into Saturday, but again, this depends on the movement of the closed low, both low level and mid level. With lots of trees still having full canopies, a very heavy wet snow could be bad. We used a heavy NBM outlook for this package given all the above and did not refine much of the forecast beyond Tuesday. Just too much can change. Trying not to get into specifics at this time, nope, wouldn't be prudent. But it's kind of exciting/frustrating to have so many unknowns because, quote, we have something to talk about, end of quote. And that also is the end of the forecast discussion, long-term forecast discussion. Boulder, Colorado, Denver, Colorado, as well. National Weather Service updated long-term forecasts by Heavier, and that's the only part of the forecast discussion that's written by Heavier, probably the only part that has so much emotion and expresses such excitement about weather. We have a powerhouse storm system which is headed into the Gulf of Alaska this week. If we just focus on the Midwest for just a second, we do have a low pressure system right now in the Colorado-Kansas border. Nothing too significant, 29.4. But what is very significant is that this low pressure system is playing a role in bringing not just unseasonably mild air into the Midwest, including Chicago, Illinois, right here, even up to Lake Michigan. It's not just playing a role in that, but it's also bringing unseasonably humid air here into the Midwest with dew points going into the 60s. We have 70-degree dew points going all the way up. European computer models forecasting it to go well into Arkansas. And the 60-degree dew points right now are into the southeastern portions of Iowa. European computer model has low 50s for the dew points in northern Illinois. We would have to see what the actual weather stations are reporting. But that changes as we go into the night tonight, and the winds in the Chicago area become southwesterly. That's actually going to blow more humid air into our area, and dew points are actually forecasted to go into the low 60s. And being that the temperatures will be close to that as well, we're going to have high relative humidity, which is going to increase the impact of what a low 60-degree dew point feels like. The air will feel humid later on tonight, and the National Weather Service makes sure to point that out to us in their forecast. So we have that unseasonably mild air, which is coming off of a flow coming in onto the East Coast. But the main thing is this low pressure system situated right now over in the Kansas, Colorado area, and that's going to hang around there for the next day or so. And actually, it's going to almost be like a panhandle hook. That storm system is also bringing a severe weather outbreak right now to portions of of Oklahoma and Kansas. We could take a look at that in just a moment. But to come back to what the original purpose of going on to windy.com was, to point out the low pressure system, which is the powerhouse low pressure system. It's right now off it's the southwest islands of Alaska. At the current time, it looks like the barometric pressure of this storm system is around 28.9. That's actually pretty normal for that part of the world. But as we go through the night tonight, and we're using Chicago time, by midnight, Chicago time tonight, that storm system drops to a barometric pressure of 28.6 with a very well-defined cold front. Despite the fact it's in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, it's still a very well-defined cold front, despite the water temperatures being exactly the same ahead of the front as behind the front. And the barometric pressure continues to drop to 28.5 by the time we hit 3 a.m. Chicago time tonight, and then continues to drop to 28.4 by the time we hit 6 a.m. You have to realize every 0.1 is about 3 MB, so it's dropping at about 1 MB per hour. This is a certain bombogenesis, as we like to call it. This is an explosion of pressure, of low pressure, a developing low pressure system going down to, by 9 a.m. tomorrow, we're all the way down to 28.2, and it continues to intensify after tomorrow, into tomorrow afternoon, and by noon tomorrow, it's at 28.1. And that thing actually drops down to 28.0. It's 28.02 by the time we're at 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. This is like hurricane strength already. And then 28.01 by the time you hit 5 p.m. This is, again, the European computer model, and this is not a hurricane. Therefore, it does not lose any strength when it hits land. So the thing is just a very intense storm. It actually is going down to 27.98, says the European computer model, by 9 o'clock p.m. tomorrow. And at that point, the thing will be over Alaska. This is, it's very close to Unalaska, Alaska. That's the name of the town that it's very, very close to. The center is right by Unalaska, Alaska. And those winds are probably going to be something phenomenal. You look at the Unalaska, Alaska wind forecast, and the European computer model shows 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, a 34 mile per hour sustained wind with gusts to 61 miles per hour and gusts to 65 miles per hour later on in the morning, with a continuous rain that develops. It's by 9 o'clock p.m. It's the Chicago time. By tomorrow night, we have that barometric pressure down at 27.98, and that's going to be as low as it's going to go before the thing gradually starts to weaken. But you have to realize, so by 9 a.m. Tuesday, by 12 hours later, it's back at 28.1. So and then we start gradually weakening to 28.2 by the time you hit 6 hours after that. And then 6 hours after that, it's at 28.3. So it's doing a weakening of 1 MB every 2 hours. So it's going to be weakening at half the pace of what it's strengthened at as it moves into the Alaska coast or onto the Alaska coast, continuing to weaken. So in a weakening storm, you'd have to see what exactly they're forecasting regarding the snowfall in that area. We have in the Valdez, Alaska area over the next 4 days, 40 to 50 inches of snow. In fact, we have one area, according to the European computer model, forecasting 77 inches of snow up in that area. We have 70, this town over here, it's called an unorganized borough, for 74 inches of snow. This is pretty close to the Valdez, Alaska area. It's Whittier, Alaska. That's the area that really gets monster snowfall as we go through the season. In just the next 4 days, 70 some inches of snow for that part of the region. I'm sure the European model is the snowfall amounts are not an accurate reflection of reality. It's a much higher amounts than, because a lot of this is going to be melting. So, but it does show very significant snow, a solid 6 to 12 inches for portions of the Colorado area, even areas, well, Wyoming is not so much, but if you look over the next 8 days, the 8-day snow totals, you'll have, it's mostly in Colorado where we see these very large amounts, but we also have some significant snow possible in portions not too far away from Scotts Bluff, Nebraska. It's this place called Kiowa, Kiowa, in Colorado, where we have rain changing to snow tonight. The main storm system comes in Friday. There's a lot of uncertainty, as we pointed out before, but by the time you hit Friday, 5 a.m. into 8 a.m., that period, 2 inches of snow every 3 hours. That's what the European computer model is forecasting for a time period. And that could easily, another strong, heavy burst early Saturday morning, late Friday night. 6 inches on Friday, another 6 inches Friday night. That one could be a foot of snow for this area. On Thursday afternoon to Friday night, we'd be looking at this very significant winter storm for that area, for about a foot of snow. It's not too far from the Denver, Colorado area either. The Denver, Colorado area, they have a 6-inch snowstorm. They may get 6 inches out of this as well, Friday into Friday night. If you look into the portions of Denver, you go into the AccuWeather app, and they have snow coming Friday night, and Saturday morning. That would be a possible snowstorm for that area. The chances are the GFS will show a more clear storm track on that. 29.8 in the Kansas area by Friday evening. That's a low pressure system that slowly then moves into south central Nebraska, shows the GFS strengthening to 29.7 by 2 a.m. Saturday morning. Later Saturday morning, it continues to move north, but remaining pretty close to 29.7 even by Saturday evening as it moves into west central Iowa, strengthening to 29.6 as it moves into the southern portions of Minnesota by early Sunday morning. Several additional feet of snow is expected by Monday morning. We have a powerhouse typhoon which has developed off in the Pacific Ocean. A big shockaroo to many of you. This is especially true in regards to what's going to be going on in Alaska. We have parts of the world that are so hot right now. Temperatures are expected to go into the low 130s. Hey, we have a special guest on our show. What is your name? A heat wave that's going to be headed to the Eilat area. We're going to have to wait before we get into the next excitement. We're going from one extreme to the next extreme. 27.1 barometric pressure. Feet of snow are falling in Japan.
Oh my gosh.
Weather. That's a time of celebration. Just Google weather with enthusiasm and they're all going to come up.